Good day, everyone. Again, this is Miss Resame Silaigan, and for today's session, we're going to discuss about research ethics. This is very important that you have to make sure that your research should be ethical. So, what is a research ethics? So, actually, research ethics is composed of ethical guidelines used in a research process, such as accurate and truth reporting of findings. So you have to ensure that your findings should be free of bias, and what is your result should be reported honestly. And all you need to do is to support it with enough fact or evidences. Maybe you can use the other studies or the result of other studies or the explanation of your related literature to explain that result on why that result happens. So it's not just about the truth of reporting and findings, but also the proper treatment of the research participants, especially if you are going to do the primary data collection. So, during the data collection, you have to consider the privacy, the voluntarism, the full information, and the consent of your respondents. So, you have to take note to all of this. So, a piece of behavioral research is ethical when the benefits and relevance of the research balance costs in time and risks of harm to participants when their interests and well-being are being respected, and when they are properly informed about the nature of the research and the voluntary nature of their participation. So why research ethics is important? Because it promotes the research purpose, such as knowledge, truth, and avoidance of error. Knowledge, so you have to bring additional knowledge, or you have to add additional knowledge to the existing body of knowledge. Truth, you have to report the true findings of your study. Avoidance of error, it should be, you have to make sure that your research ethics is high quality and there are no errors in accord with that. So that is why you have to check your research paper through a plagiarism checker, because that is also one of the indicator of in measuring the integrity as well as the quality of your research. And it promotes the values that are essential to collaborative work, such as trust, accountability, mutual respect, and fairness. So you have to apply all of these characteristics, all of these important core values in doing your research. Since research mostly involves a great deal of cooperation and coordination with different people in different organizations or institutions. If you remember with the significance of your study, so there are lots of stakeholders that you mentioned there, and your research involves a great deal for those stakeholders that will benefit your study. You have to make sure that your research is for the good of the public. So you as a researcher, when you're doing a research, because you deal with social problems, you use that problems in making your research, or you make that problem as your basis in doing the research, and from that research you are going to create solution in solving that problem. So that is how you are held accountable to the public. Then it also helps to build public support for research, as people are more likely to fund a research project if they can trust the quality and integrity of the research. So Another thing is it also promotes social responsibility in resolving current issues. So you have also to take note that ethical lapses can significantly harm the public. So in treating your participants, first is you have to have this informed consent. So an informed consent is a process by which you ask permission to your target participant to participate your survey or interview that will be used in your research. Before your participant will participate with your survey or interview, you must provide a consent letter. And what is consent letter? A consent letter is a letter written to request permission with your participants. So these are the following important elements of your consent letter. So you have the topic or domain and purpose, or what is the study all about, the time needed by your participants, the risks and the costs, the benefits, the confidentiality or anonymity of their responses, the researcher contact information, and the signed copy for both participants and researcher. Actually, the signed copy pertains to the consent of agreement. So this is an example of a consent letter here. I created a sample of the consent letter. This is the date, no, November 11, 2020. So it is addressed to the respondents. Then I have here the salutation, like, dear respondents, greetings of peace and prosperity. I, Reza Macy Ligan, one of the student researchers of ABC University, conducted a study about the willingness to pay towards the proposed wet park project in Iligan City. So you mention here the main purpose of your study. So before you decide to participate in this study, it is important that you understand why the research is being done and what it will involve. So here, you mention the method on how you collect the data. So using a survey that will be administered to individual target respondents in selected barangays, particularly in Del Carmen, Bagong Silang, Palao, San Miguel, Sibanga, Tambo, Santiago, Saray, and Villaverde. As one of our target respondents, you will be asked to provide answers. So this is the costs and the risks to a series of questions that related to your socioeconomic status, expectations, and willingness to pay to the proposed wet park project. So this is already the cost and risk here. So this survey will cost you 5 to 10 minutes. So this is the time. And the researcher assures you that your responses are obtained and recorded anonymously and kept confidential. So here, you assure here the anonymity and confidentiality of the responses of your respondents. So no identifiable information will be collected from the participants, and no identifiable responses will be presented in the final form of this study. So all data will be stored in a secure location accessible to only to the researcher. So the findings of this study, so this talk about the benefits. The findings of this study will be benefit the potential tourists, the local government unit of Iligan City, and the residents, as this study will serve as the basis in implementing policy to conserve and sustain the proposed project in the long run. Your participation will be highly appreciated for the benefit of the city. Thank you very much. So don't forget to thank you. Then truly yours, your name here along with your signature, your position as a researcher, then your contact number. Actually, this contact number is only optional, but this contact information will be used by your respondent in case that they will withdraw their participation from your study. So this is the sample of the letter of consent. So, let's go back here. No? Let's proceed to the privacy. So, privacy is really necessary, especially when you deal with participants. So, information about your target participants must be kept in anonymous and confidential. So, as mentioned in the informed consent, the researcher assures that the responses of the participants or target respondents must be kept in anonymous and confidential. Example, ikaw researcher, you are gathering data and you're done gathering data from one of the schools in Iligan City, and you ride in the jeep. Then unfortunately natulog ka sa jeep habang dala-dala mo yung questionnaires mo with the responses of your respondents. Then unfortunately the questionnaires was left at the jeep. Then may masasamang tao na nakita yung questionnaires mo, binasa, at what if nandoon lahat yung information, yung pangalan ng respondent, yung age ng respondent, yung sex ng respondent, yung information kung saan nakatira ang respondent, yung family income ng respondent, at what if yung family income na nilagay niya doon is 10 million annually. So, the masamang tao there will maybe stalk that respondent. Maybe he will search for that respondent. He will attest if this respondent is totoo ba, mayaman ba, and kapag nalaman niya yun, there is a possibility na kikidnapin niya yung respondent. Okay? Kidnap for ransom. So, the respondent is on danger. So, ikaw researcher, hindi lang magiging danger yung grade mo, pati yung respondents mo. Kasi, naiwan mo yung questionnaire mo. See? With that just one ethical lapse, it can bring danger. That is why, in doing data collection, you must be careful enough in storing the data of your respondent. And when you report your findings, you have to present the data in aggregate form, not in individually, just to respect their privacy. So, in making your consent letter, you should indicate that the information provided by your participants will be in anonymous or confidential. So next is you have to consider their voluntarism or the voluntary. So the participation of your participants should be voluntary. So it must be free from coercion, like bawal talaga yung pinilit nyo yung participant nyo, huwag nyo talaga silang pilitin, and undue influence, or you should not influence your participants. So for example is meron kang kakilala at gusto mo maging participant siya ng study mo, in-approach mo siya, pero sabi niya ayaw niya. Okay? So, ikaw, anong gagawin mo? Wag mo talagang gawin na takutin mo yung kakilala mo. So, that is already a coercion. Right? So, para mo talagang pinilit or you force that person to participate your study. So, that is why you have to take note that the participation of your participants should be voluntary. So, take note that they can withdraw their participation from your study anytime for any reason, with no adverse consequences and threat. So, what if may isang participant ang nag-withdraw ng kanilang participation from your study, what are you going to do? Hindi naman pwede na takutin mo, 'di ba? Because you don't know the reason, or maybe they're not busy. So, in treating your participants, you have to treat them carefully. And isa pa, it's a big no-no na magpa-survey ka, tapos babayaran mo, bibigyan mo ng 20 pesos, for example, yung participant just to answer your survey. That is not advisable. Pero if mostly kapag focus group discussion, siguro dyan, kailangan mo na talaga ng compensation. Because the focus group discussion requires more time and effort, especially in participating the study. So, again, you have to consider the voluntarism, the informed consent, and the privacy of your participants. And in doing your research, you have to report the findings truthfully. You have to ensure the ethics of your research. Okay? So that would be all about the research ethics, and I hope you learned something about it, that you will apply it in your research study. So again, thank you for listening and have a nice day.